of Zedekiah and destruction of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. 20. 3-6. 21. 3-10. 39. 6-9 The dethronement and death in captivity of King Shalamchoahaz. 22. 11, 12. 2 Chi 23. 30-34. 2 Ch 36. 1-4 The taking captive of King Jehoiachin to Babylon. 22. 24-27. 2 Chi 24. 15, 16 The death, within 1 year, of the false prophet Hananiah. 28. 16, 17 Some of the Rechabites and Ebmelech the Ethiopian surviving Jerusalem's destruction. 35. 19. 39. 15-18 Others concerning which history records fulfillment. Egypt invaded, conquered by Nebuchadnezzar. 43. 8-13. 46. 13-26 The return of the Jews and O textually acute miritra longo. Jericho. 35 The wrote through the window of her house situated atop Jericho's wall. For 3 days the two men hid themselves in the nearby Mount Venus region, after which they forded the Jordan and returned to the Israelite camp. Jos 2. 1-23. Great must have been the fear of Jericho's king and its inhabitants as they heard about or witnessed the miraculous damming up of the flooding Jordan, enabling the Israelites to cross on dry ground. Afterward, although the Israelite males underwent circumcision and had to recover from its effects before being in a good position to defend themselves, no one dared to attack them at Gilgal. Unmolested, the Israelites also observed the Passover on the desert plain of Jericho. Jos 5. 1-10. Later, near Jericho, an angelic prince appeared to Joshua and outlined the procedure for taking the city, which was then tightly shut up on account of the Israelites. Obediently, once a day for 6 days the Israelite military force went forth, followed by 7 priests continually blowing their horns, behind whom were the priests carrying the ark, and finally the rear guard. All marching around Jericho. But on the 7th day they marched around the city 7 times. At the blowing of the horns on the final march around Jericho, the people shouted a great war cry, and the city's walls began to fall flat. Jos 5. 13. 6. 20. The Israelites then rushed into Jericho, devoting its inhabitants and all domestic animals to destruction. But on account of the kindness shown by Rahab in hiding the spies, she and her relatives, safe in her house atop the portion of the wall that had not fallen, were preserved alive. The entire city was burned, but the gold and silver were turned over to Jehovah's sanctuary. Jos 6. 20-25 However, one Israelite, Achan, stole a gold bar, some silver, and a fine garment and then hid the items under his tent. Thereby he brought death upon himself and his entire family. Jos 7. 20-26. Later historical references. The destroyed city of Jericho subsequently became part of Benjamite territory bordering on Ephraim and Manasseh. Jos 16. 1, 7. 18. 12, 21 Not long thereafter some kind of settlement apparently sprang up at the site. It was captured by Moab's king Eglon and remained under his control for 18 years. JG 3. 12-30 In the time of King David a settlement continued to exist at Jericho. 2 10. 5. 1 Ch 19. 5 But not until Ahab's reign did Hiel the Bethelite actually rebuild Jericho. The prophetic curse pronounced by Joshua over 500 years earlier was then fulfilled, Hiel losing Abiram his firstborn as he laid the foundation, and Segub his youngest son when he put up the doors. Jos 6. 26. 1 Chi 16. 34. During this same general period some of the sons of the prophets resided at Jericho. 2 Chi 2. 4, 5 After Jehovah took the prophet Elijah away in a windstorm, Elisha remained at excavation of walls of ancient Jericho, Jeriel 36 Jericho for a time, and healed the city's water supply. 2 Chi 2. 11-15, 19-22 The water of Ain is Sultan traditionally. The fountain that Elisha healed has been described as sweet and pleasant, and irrigates the gardens of modern Jericho. In the time of wicked Judean King Ahaz, Jehovah permitted the Israelite armies under King Pekah to inflict a humiliating defeat upon unfaithful Judah, killing 120,000 and taking 200,000 captives. But Jehovah's prophet Oded met the returning victors and warned them not to enslave the captives. Accordingly, the captives, after being clothed and fed, were taken to Jericho and released. 2ch 28. 6-15. After the fall of Jerusalem in 607 BCE, King Zedekiah fled in the direction of Jericho, but was overtaken and captured by the Babylonians in the desert plains of Jericho. 2ch 25. 5. 39. 5. 52. 8. Following the release from Babylonian exile, 345 sons of Jericho were among those returning with Zerubbabel in 537 BCE and apparently settled at Jericho. As 2. 1, 2, 34. Ne 7. 36 later, some of the men of Jericho assisted in rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem. Ne 3. 2. In the year 33 CE, Jericho figured in Jesus' ministry when he was on his way to Jerusalem for the Passover. Near this city Jesus Christ healed the sight of blind Bartimaeus and his companion. Mr. 10. 46. Mount 20. 29. Lu 18. 35. See Bartimaeus. At Jericho, Jesus also met Zacchaeus and thereafter was a guest at his home. Lu 19. 1-7. Earlier in Judea, when giving his illustration of the neighborly Samaritan, Jesus alluded to the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. Lu 10. 30. This road, according to ancient historical testimony, was frequented by robbers. Have archaeologists found evidence of the destruction of Jericho in the days of Joshua? Professor John Garstang, leader of an English expedition at El Sultan between 1929 and 1936, found that what he considered to be one of the cities built on the site had been subjected to intense fires and its walls had fallen. This city he identified with the Jericho of Joshua's time and assigned its destruction to about 1400 BCE, although some scholars today still endorse Garstang's conclusions, others interpret the evidence differently. Writes archaeologist G. Ernest Wright. The two walls which surrounded the summit of the old city, which Garstang believed were destroyed by earthquake and fire in Joshua's time, were discovered to date from the 3rd millennium and to represent only two of some 14 different walls or wall components built successively during that age. Biblical Archaeology, 1962, pages 79, 80. Many feel that little, if anything, remains of the Jericho that existed in Joshua's time, earlier excavations at the site having removed what might have survived from the time of its destruction. As Professor Jack Finnegan notes, there is now, therefore, virtually no evidence at the site by which to try to determine at what date Joshua might have taken Jericho. Light from the Ancient Past, 1959, p. 159. For this reason numerous scholars date the fall of Jericho on circumstantial evidence, and suggested dates span a period of about 200 years. In view of such uncertainty, Professor Mary Lethunger fittingly observes, scholars also must be extremely wary of attaching undue authority to archaeologists' estimates of dates and interpretation of data. That the fixing of dates and the conclusions drawn from archaeological findings often depend on subjective factors is amply demonstrated by the wide divergences between competent authorities on these matters. Archaeology in the Old Testament, 1964, p. 164. Therefore, the fact that the interpretations of archaeologists do not agree with biblical or textual acute miracle longo, Jeroboam 37, 6. A son of David whose daughter married King Rehoboam. 2ch 11. 18. As Jeremoth is not included in the listings of David's sons by his named wives, he might have been a son by a concubine or by an unnamed wife. 2 5. 13. Jeremoth was apparently married to his cousin Abiel, the daughter of David's oldest brother Eliab. 2ch 11. 18. 1-17. 13. 7. One of the Levite commissioners caring for the generous contribution, tithe, and holy things brought in during Hezekiah's reign. 2ch 31. 12, 13. Jerioth Jerimiddle from a root verb meaning quiver. It is likely that Jerioth was a concubine or handmaid of Caleb who bore some of his sons credited to Azubah his wife. 1 Chronicles 2:18 reads, Caleb became father to sons by Azubah his wife and by Jerioth. And these were her sons. Jeroboam Boam. 2 kings of Israel whose reigns were separated by some 130 years. 1. First king of the 10-tribe kingdom of Israel. The son of Nebat, one of Solomon's officers in the village of Zereda, of the tribe of Ephraim. Apparently at an early age Jeroboam was left fatherless, to be raised by his widowed mother Zeruiah. 1 Kings 11:26. When Solomon observed that Jeroboam was not only a valiant, mighty man but also a hard worker, he put him in charge of the compulsory labor force of the house of Joseph. 1 Kings 11:28. Subsequently, Jeroboam was approached by God's prophet Ahijah with startling news. After tearing his own new garment into 12 pieces, the prophet told Jeroboam to take 10 of them in symbol of how Jehovah would rip Solomon's kingdom in two and make Jeroboam king over 10 of the tribes. This, however, was to be merely a governmental division and not also a departure from true worship as centered at the temple in Jerusalem, the capital of the southern kingdom. So Jehovah assured Jeroboam that he would bless and prosper his reign and build him a lasting house of successors provided he kept God's laws and commandments. 1 Kings 11:29-38. Possibly it was upon learning of these events that Solomon sought to kill Jeroboam. However, Jeroboam fled to Egypt, and there under the sheltering protection of Pharaoh Shishak he remained until the death of Solomon. 1 Kings 11:40. The news of Solomon's death in about 998 BCE brought Jeroboam quickly back to his homeland, where he joined his people in demanding that Solomon's son Rehoboam lighten their burdens if he wanted their support of his new kingship. Rehoboam, however, disregarded the good advice of the older counselors in preference to that of younger men his own age who told him to increase the workload of the people. The 10 tribes responded,